The resurrection of one is the resurrection for all. So said Gregory of Nyssa, who was a 4th century bishop in Turkey. The resurrection of one is the resurrection of all. Too many times I think Christians think that Christmas is the chief Christian feast. It's really not. It didn't show up till about the 4th century. The chief Christian feast is Easter, the resurrection. And we today come to the end of a 3-part play. 3 acts. It started on Maundy Thursday with Jesus giving himself as the servant, both as washing his disciples' feet and in the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ. Then we came to his suffering and his passion and his death on Good Friday. And finally, we come to today, his resurrection. So the story that we are partaking of today is just part. And hopefully you've journeyed along with us these last few days, because you really can't get to today unless you've walked the cross. Many people have told me over months and months that we're living in a very dark time. A dark time when the church is full of hypocrisy and corruption, where government is morally bankrupt, where the environment is forgotten, where people who are rich and powerful abuse their status and abuse those who are poor and powerless. And the list of despair goes on and on. So in many ways, we too partake of that cross of Christ, that suffering. But we all have to realize that when we embrace that suffering, we also embrace that resurrection, that hope. Because no matter how bad life gets, and life sometimes gets very dark. The world is dark, our relationships go dark, our individual lives get dark. We have to embrace that light, that resurrection light. And if you were with us last night, we kindle a bonfire outside and we pray around it because we realize that light overcomes that darkness in our world. And that life overcomes death. And that's the core meaning of our Christian faith. Too many times Christianity gets hijacked by people and it turns into something about you're less than this, or believe this, or don't believe that, or you're bad and you're good. But really, Christianity is about giving life. And when you give life, you partake of that resurrection that Jesus gave to so many. And I think that is at the core of what it means to be a follower of Jesus today, is that we are people of resurrection. We're people that give life to a world that is full of death and darkness. So many of us have seen that iconic image this week of the burning of Notre Dame Cathedral. That horrible image of fire. But if you saw the picture inside, amongst all the rubble, you saw that cross in the back. But something has been forgotten a little bit when that picture has been taken. If you've ever been inside Notre Dame, what's at the base of that cross? It's Mary holding her dead son in her arms, an image of the Pietà. And so you can't get to the cross, that resurrection, unless you also hold in your hands the sufferings of the world, just like Mary held the sufferings of her son. And I think that's a lot of times not mentioned in that picture, is that we too, as followers of Jesus, hold the sufferings of the world in our hearts. But we have to allow the resurrection to transform it, to bring that pain to healing, to bring that darkness to light, to bring that death to life. So that quote from Gregory of Nyssa requires that each of us be partakers and promoters of resurrection. And I think if Christianity talked more about resurrection, we would be a much different faith. Much different faith. And I wish we would spend more time focusing on the resurrection than anything else. Not condemning people, not being some moral police officer, but talking about how we give life to the world. That is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So I ask you on this day of resurrection, how do you practice resurrection in your life? How do you practice resurrection? How do you practice giving life to the world? So maybe that means helping someone who is on their last legs of life, to be with them in their suffering. The elderly, the sick, the homebound. Maybe it's being with someone who has no one, the lonely, the forgotten. That's giving life. Maybe you stand up for someone who's oppressed, the immigrant, the refugee, the broken, the person abused because of race, gender, sexuality. That's giving life. Maybe you're with someone who has material needs. They're hungry. They need clothing. They need medical care. You're giving life to them. You're practicing resurrection. So that truly is what it means to be a follower of the risen one. It's not about judging people or condemning people for this or that or whatever. It's about giving life. And I will even go far to say, if you do not give life to another human being or the world, you are not a follower of Christ. You are not a follower of Christ. Do you defend the environment? Do you defend those who are weak? Do you defend the foreigner? Do you defend those who are sick? Those who are weak in mind, body, or spirit? Do you defend the other religion, the outsider? That's practicing resurrection. And that truly is what it means to be a part of our life in Christ. So Christ's resurrection, that walk that started so many years ago, was one that embraced the suffering of the world, of a broken world, but also requires us to be followers of Christ, to be givers of his resurrection to all, to be bearers of that life. So for these next 50 days, because Easter is not just one day in our tradition, let's be bearers of life. And let us practice resurrection, not for one, but resurrection for all.